That was epic! Super Heavy Booster 9 conducts another static fire. Is Ship 25 ready for a rollout? Crew 7 launches after a delay? Do you know where Starlink hardware is made? And Rocket Lab reuses their first engine. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. Welcome back to Starbase. Only a few days have passed since our recent update, and look at that, so much has changed. Today I have something extraordinary for you. This is worth your time. Follow me. Returning to our tradition, we kick this episode off with updates from the launch site. After a slower period, activities here ramped up again when Booster 9 made its way back from the Mega Bay on August 22nd. The booster was there to receive a state-of-the-art hot staging ring, the final major hardware needed to get this super heavy booster flight ready. Once hoisted onto the orbital launch mount, Booster 9 was securely clamped in place and the team began final pre-launch tests. The Fyrex system was one of the first items on the checklist, undergoing successful testing on the very same day to ensure its functionality throughout the upcoming test campaign. Talking about SpaceX pace here. Not wanting to lose momentum, the following day saw the closure of Highway 4 as the prototype's liquid oxygen tank was partially filled. After roughly half an hour of fueling, all 33 engines underwent a successful spin prime test. The Raptor engine is like a muscle, it sometimes needs a workout. The test campaign has been going so smoothly that by August 25th, the residents of Boca Chica village were alerted about a possible overpressure event, a great sign of an upcoming static fire test. Shortly after 9 AM, the sheriff closed off the road, cleared the launch pad, and the orbital launch farm sprung into action. Soon enough, frost lines appeared on the oxygen and methane tanks, signaling that fueling was underway. So now you might be wondering, why did the oxygen and methane tanks show such different levels during this period? Excellent question, good to have you here. During the actual flight, both tanks are fully topped off. Of course, they are different sizes due to the two propellants, different densities and mixture ratios. But that's a topic for another episode. We are working on it. For the static fire test, however, there's no need to fully fuel the rocket, as the test's duration requires only a fraction of the propellant. Yet, the oxygen tank was nearly full, so why is that? Well, the clamps securing the Starship have a limited thrust tolerance. Even at 50% of maximum thrust, the Super Heavy boasts more power than an entire Saturn V rocket, so it's crucial to counterbalance this enormous thrust. Maybe it's a good idea if the booster doesn't weigh almost nothing. Imagine strapping two Tesla Plaid motors on a bike. This weight increase is achieved by filling the LOX tank, which helps ensure that the clamps remain intact and the booster doesn't just rip them apart, flying off the OLM to infinity and beyond. A few minutes before the ignition, SpaceX officially announced that this test would be another 33 Raptor static fire. SpaceX's webcast went live, revealing Booster 9 paused at T-minus 40 seconds ahead of ignition. This intentional hold was similar to the one during the first Starship launch and ensures adequate tank pressures and temperatures. 5 minutes later, the countdown resumed. At T-minus 20 seconds, we witnessed the Fyrex system spring into action, closely followed by the newly installed water deflector system. I was sitting in the Y studio totally pumped. Does it sound nerdy if I still am days after the action? Just 2 seconds shy of T-minus 0, all 33 Raptors roared to life for a full 5 seconds, generating massive clouds of vaporized water. Immediately after the shutdown, it was confirmed that the test had achieved its full duration, which is a massive win for SpaceX. At this point, I was jumping around in the studio. Although the details around the engine's performance were sparse this time, SpaceX later tweeted that despite 2 engines shutting down mid-test, the overall test was deemed a success. In fact, this appears to be SpaceX's most successful static fire to date. All 33 engines were successfully ignited, and only 2 of them didn't make it to the 5-second mark. Once the livestream concluded, 3 stunning videos were released. Just take a moment to appreciate the sheer spectacle. This footage also showcased just how well the recently installed deluge system works. Comparing Booster 7's static fire to Booster 9's, the difference is day and night. After the test, rumors circulated about potential damage to the pad, even suggesting that concrete was flying again. However, aerial photos, courtesy of my incredibly talented wife Stefanie, showed that the only damage to the orbital launch mount and the tower was some missing paint. The scattered concrete outside the launch site dates back to the first launch. This test reinforces my confidence in SpaceX's approach to protecting the pad. Granted, the engines operated at only 50% thrust this time, but the water deflector system has more than enough fluid to protect the OLM from Raptor-generated heat and force. I believe that even with the premature shutdown of 2 Raptors, SpaceX will continue to prep for the launch without another static fire. After all, 31 engines are more than what's needed to get a Starship to stage separation. Redundancy is the word here, but that is not all. Switching gears to the build side, Ship 25 remains in the rocket garden. But eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed a significant change since our last update. Do you see it? Pause this video and leave your answer in the comments. If your guess was heat tiles, give yourself a pat on the back, you nailed it. The SpaceX team took some time to get here, but they finally carefully covered all the nose cone lifting points with heat tiles. These were affixed using the welded clips and some adhesive, with everything secured with tape. The tape is used to fix the tiles in place while the glue cures. You don't always need crazy technology to accomplish simple tasks. Every so often, duct tape is all you need. This development likely wraps up the major tasks for Ship 25, setting the stage for its move to the launch site potentially as soon as this week. So to answer the initial question, yes, Ship 25 is ready for the rollout. Once relocated, the remaining steps are pretty straightforward. Mechazilla, which has already received the ship hooks, will hoist it onto Booster 9, then a quick wet dress rehearsal test. And just like that, the second orbital Starship will be ready for flight. From there, it's the FAA's move. We've heard that the investigation into the first flight should wrap up soon. Obtaining the flight license should be a formality if no significant issues arise. As I'm recording this episode, the earliest potential flight date remains September 8th, as indicated by the latest notice to mariners. Can you feel the anticipation building? The hype is real. Get ready for a Y Starship Marathon 10-hour stream or 2. Shifting our focus back to the build side, a flurry of activity has recently occurred. For example, check this out. You might recall that SpaceX dismantled the second production tent on August 16th. At that time, we were all left speculating about when the first tent would meet a similar fate. After the first demolition, excavation work began inside this tent. Aerial shots then revealed nothing left inside, hinting that its days were numbered. And sure enough, on August 26th, just 10 days after the first tent was taken down, the second tent also became history. Taking down these tents is a necessary evolution towards Starship mass production. As the Star Factory continues to grow, additional space is crucial for its final development phase. The building now features roofing tiles and wall tiles, making it increasingly difficult to get a glimpse inside. The expansion of the factory is also creeping closer to Highway 4, marked by the installation of the first beams for an elevated section. This area is designed for nose cone assembly, as they require more vertical space. It's not a matter of if, but when the third and final production tent will be dismantled. I predict it will not make it to the end of the year, maybe not even the end of September. But it's not just the production tents that have been coming down at Starbase. We built this channel to share some extremely important information, but it is often difficult to find. One of the ways I've been getting data-driven and objective news is by using ground news. Developed by a former NASA engineer, the app and website help us wade through media biases by organizing the world's news in one place. Look at this particular article on Russia's Luna 25. On the website, we can see over 40 articles are published on this, primarily from left-leaning publications. When we look at the coverage, we see there are two distinct narratives. One blaming Russia's inactivity for the failure, while others are talking about the reasons the lunar lander crashed. Isn't it fascinating to see how different headlines can shape our understanding of the same event? Plus, for anyone interested in space or aviation specifically, you can set up custom feeds to get notifications on breaking news from sources you otherwise might have missed. I've been leaning on ground news to research my videos. I know I'm not going to miss a story on space or otherwise because they have a worldwide selection of news and topics. In fact, ground news mission aligns so much with what we do here, diving deep, understanding better, and promoting informed discussions. I highly recommend giving it a try. If you go to ground.news/whataboutit and subscribe before September 15th, you can snag 30% off unlimited access. Plus, you'll be supporting our content here too. A big thank you goes to Ground News for supporting our channel. The mid-bay met a similar end torn down on August 27th. While it hasn't seen much use lately, longtime Y viewers will recall its original purpose. In the past, the construction process for the Starship began with one half being assembled in the mid-bay, followed by the second half. These were then moved to the high bay for mating. However, as high bay's capabilities have grown, the need for mid-bay has diminished. Given the rapid expansion plans for the build site, this space is now more valuable for other uses, like for example a third megabay. That's why over the past few days, workers have been busy tearing apart the walls and cutting the foundational beams of the building. While white cones had been set up in front of the mid-bay, seeing the structure fall to the right during demolition was surprising. You could say that mid-bay became mid-buy. At a glance, this might have appeared to be an engineering mistake, but upon closer inspection it became clear that an excavator deliberately pulled the structure in that direction. This also sheds light on why demolition of mid-bay was delayed until both production tents had been removed. I must confess, watching the event unfold live via La Padre's cameras was a nail-biting experience. It looked as though the building might fall towards the road for a moment, but thankfully it landed exactly where it was intended to. Moving on, let's briefly discuss some intriguing developments at the Sanchez site. The mysterious rings have multiplied. Now there are 4 of them, 2 white and 2 black ones. We haven't spotted the one ring yet, but we're on it. The first white ring has recently been equipped with clamps, suggesting that it is intended to support the weight of Starship or booster prototypes. It could very well be an engine installation stand. The second white ring looks identical and already has 10 phone booth pieces attached. The black rings are even more enigmatic, completely shrouded in scaffolding. In addition to the rings, something even stranger has been spotted: a frame topped with some sort of plate. At first look, it might look like a cover for a water-cooled steel plate. However, this theory is questioned because the orbital launch mount has 6 legs, while this mysterious structure only has 5 cutouts. Do you have any idea what this could turn out to be, or maybe you know what the purpose of those weird rings is? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. With enough suggestions, there must be at least one that's correct. Okay, so last time I gave you a task and many took it. YouTube can sometimes unsubscribe you from our channel. These comments show how widespread this problem is, so check if you're still subscribed even if you were already, so that you don't miss our uploads. We are so close to hitting the insane milestone of 300,000 subscribers. Can you help us achieve it before the end of September? While at it, hit that like button, share this video with your family and friends, and consider becoming a wise supporter. You get access to daily Starbase photo galleries for as low as $1 per month. Now it includes aerial and ground photos of SpaceX's progress and countless other extras on top. No matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. The link to our Patreon page is in the description. Thanks to all the supporters who help fulfill dreams for our team. We can't thank you enough. You rock. On we go. Originally scheduled for August 25th, Crew 7's departure to space had to be postponed by a day. Although no official reason was provided for the delay, various factors from bad weather conditions to potential collision risks with space debris could have resulted in the postponement. You wouldn't want to crash into a satellite, right? Fortunately, the wait was short-lived. Just a day later, 4 astronauts, Jasmine Mark-Belly, Andreas Mogensen, Satoshi Furukawa, and Konstantin Borisov, boarded the Crew Dragon Endurance. Following standard pre-launch checks and sealing up the capsule, the crew access arm was retracted and Falcon 9 was fueled. Then, in the middle of the night, all 9 Merlin 1D engines roared to life, propelling the rocket skyward and launching the crew into orbit. Less than 3 minutes into the flight, booster B1081 had completed its role and began its return sequence to Earth. Traditionally, crew missions have required a landing on a remote drone ship. However, since the Axiom 2 mission, SpaceX has optimized the return profile enough to perform a return to launch site or RTLS maneuver. Before that happened, something intriguing occurred during the booster's re-entry. 6 minutes and 20 seconds after liftoff, the webcast host mentioned that we expect a 10-second re-entry burn to help slow the booster down. Instead, what transpired was a noticeably shorter 4-second burn. With no telemetry from the first stage available, it's difficult to say why the burn deviated from its expected duration. Regardless, it appears that the shorter burn wasn't anything to worry about. Merely a minute later, B1081 made a soft touchdown at landing zone 1, marking the booster's first successful landing. Incredible to see that a Falcon 9 booster can stick the landing coming in so hot. The next day, Crew 7 successfully docked with the ISS, where our brave astronauts reside for the next 6 months. Their arrival also signifies the conclusion of Crew 6's mission. Following a brief transitional period, Crew 6 will board Crew Dragon Endeavour one last time to make their journey back to Earth, with a splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean planned for September 1st. And while the Crew 7 launch garnered much attention, it wasn't the only SpaceX mission in the past week. On August 27th, another Starlink mission soared into the skies, launching from Florida's Slick 40. It was the 3rd flight of booster B1080, this time carrying 22 V2 mini Starlinks into orbit. Thanks to the updated cameras on board the second stage, we were treated to some incredible visuals throughout the mission. As anticipated, the first stage nailed a perfect landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Yes! Interestingly, this mission marks the second Starship launch without live commentary. Initially, we assumed that the absence of hosts during the prior mission was a one-time occurrence due to a launch delay. However, Starlink launches have become so routine that SpaceX engineers spend their time more productively. But rest assured, here at Y, we'll continue to keep you updated on all SpaceX missions. In the previous episode, we discussed Starlink's rapid expansion and increasing revenue stream for SpaceX, definitely worth a view. Yet this fast-paced growth comes with its own set of challenges, mainly bottlenecks in the supply chain. The first one is the number of satellites currently in orbit. As the user base expands, the average bandwidth available per user decreases, potentially preventing people from signing up. This issue should be resolved once full-sized V2 Starlinks are deployed via Starship. The second bottleneck involves the Starlink terminals. Customers often find themselves on waiting lists that can extend up to a year before receiving their hardware, which currently costs around $600, a pretty hefty price tag. To tackle this bottleneck, SpaceX acquired a 48,000 square meter or 521,000 square foot land in Bastrop, Texas, situated about a 5.5-hour drive from Starbase. Rumors were saying that a Starlink production facility is in the works. The project, initially mystically referred to as Project Echo, was later confirmed to be a dedicated Starlink hardware factory during the Starship launch live stream. While the term hardware is somewhat vague, our understanding is that the facility will produce a range of equipment, including Starlink dishes, routers, and many other accessories. Currently, SpaceX's Starlink satellites are primarily produced at their Redmond facility. However, the new Texas plant might also eventually take on that role. A special thanks goes to our friend Joe Techmeyer for providing remarkable drone footage of the area. Make sure to follow him on X and YouTube for more footage like this. Links are in the description. Pay back the love. In his latest shots, we see not only the main building that looks like a giant Starlink router, but also adjacent facilities belonging to another Elon Musk venture, the Boring Company. SpaceX for months has already been recruiting staff to join this facility, indicating that it should be up and running fairly soon. To wrap this episode up, let's focus on Rocket Lab, a company we've been closely following for quite some time now as they take their strides towards reusability. Last time we dived into their earnings call, which hinted at the prospect of a reused Rutherford engine flying on an Electron mission sometime this year. Surprisingly, that day arrived sooner than expected. The mission We Love the Nightlife was slated to be Rocket Lab's 40th launch. Initially, it planned to use a standard expandable Electron rocket. The usual stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. However, minutes before liftoff, a sensor issue caused a scrub. What normally would be a quick fix took an unusually long 2 weeks for another launch attempt. We later learned the dark secret. Rocket Lab switched out the rocket for a reusable silver-coated Electron. And that wasn't the only surprise. This mission aimed to recover the booster and, surprisingly, out of nowhere, it featured a previously flown Rutherford engine. On August 24th, Electron successfully launched, delivered its payload into orbit and splashed down in the ocean for recovery. Next, a tweet confirmed that the reused engine performed perfectly, a massive leap towards more reusability for Electron. Initial post-launch silence concerned us about the booster's recovery, but Rocket Lab CEO Peter Beck later posted a picture of the rocket while also dropping another bombshell. Get this, the next Electron launch will feature 9 reused Rutherford engines. What? This is incredible news! While it is unclear whether this means all 9 engines on a brand new booster will be reused or the entire booster will be recycled, one thing is certain. Rocket Lab is hitting significant milestones almost daily on the road to reusability. Incredible stuff, you Rocket Lab! Man, I'm on a roll with these dad jokes. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. Link is in the description. And if you want to get even smarter about space and rockets, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Scrub. However, that's not all. Let me do that again. Aha.